Jackie made a promise to her grandma before she passed away to visit and care for the graves of her great-grandparents. It's one she's kept until now. Their final resting place is falling apart, and red tape means Jackie can't keep her word.
In pieces and neglected, this is the decrepit final resting place of Jackie's great-grandparents.
There's absolutely nothing I can do right now. I cannot fix this grave. I am at an absolute roadblock.
It should be a quick fix, but Jackie says repairing this grave is near impossible.
I think it shouldn't be that hard. I can prove that I am the great-granddaughter of the people in the grave.
Sydney's eastern suburbs Memorial Park. Picturesque views of the ocean with a catch.
So the side has fallen off, as you can see, and the headstone has fallen off over the back.
For Jackie, patching up her loved one's grave is a challenge.
As you can see, I can't leave it like this. The grave has no name on it anymore.
This is where her great-grandparents, Lillian and Abra Parkinson, were laid to rest. Jackie often visited here with her grandma Lily, who she promised she'd continue to care for the site.
My grandmother passed on 2012, and I've been going as promised each year.
On a recent trip, she found the grave had withered further. The side of the grave and the headstone had collapsed. Her great-grandparents, now nameless.
I got the quote, and then the stonemason asked me, are you the owner of the grave for the paperwork? And he said, oh, you need to find out who the owner is so we can get the ownership transferred.
That's when Jackie's battle began.
Well, the grave was signed for by my grandmother's brother-in-law. He has since passed. And they said, well, you need to find his children, and then they need to give you permission to fix the grave. Out of the 4 children, 3 had passed, but there was still one living, a very elderly gentleman in Wollongong.
The paperwork piled up. Jackie required to provide the death certificate of her great-grandmother's brother-in-law, the death certificates of his 3 past children. She also needed photo identification of his remaining child, the now grave owner, signed by a JP, a lot to ask from a gentleman pushing 100 years of age.
I didn't have permission to get, so it all fell on this elderly gentleman to apply for these things, and at a great cost too. All in up, the application would be $1,000, and he said it was too much. I tried to see if a solicitor could request these death certificates. He said no, because it's got to do only if it's an estate issue, which he has no connection with. I rang Birth, Deaths and Marriages. There's no way I can get the death certificates of these people.
We contacted Metropolitan Memorial Parks, which is responsible for Eastern Suburbs Memorial Park. In a statement, it told us, as land manager and cemetery operator, Metropolitan Memorial Parks is legally bound by the Cemeteries and Crematoria Act 2013 and must operate within the confines of the legal regulations. MMP strives to work with our families to support them throughout the process.
It requires a lot of extended paperwork and a very grey area of retaining documents which are sometimes impossible to attain.
David Brooks is the director of Manuka Moments.
There's nothing unreasonable about wanting to mark the grave of your brother who died when he was 2 years old before you at your elderly age. There's nothing that should imposition that, but that's what's happening.
Repairs are also difficult. A permit with a licensed stonemason is required. There are heritage restrictions too. It must be restored to its original look. If Jackie gets past all that, she's looking at up to $9,000 for the work.
Should it be this hard to repair just a bit of stone at a gravesite?
This is like law that this has to be done, and I just think it's an overkill.
Jackie, when you were walking through the site, did you notice that there were other stones that were broken as well?
I've seen many broken graves in disrepair. I mean, there's many families that have hit this hurdle and have just given up.
But Jackie won't.
How frustrating has this whole process been?
It's been too frustrating, and I look around at all the broken graves and I used to think that nobody cared about these people, but maybe they do care and they just can't, like me, get it fixed.
That is just ridiculous, isn't it? It shouldn't be that hard or expensive to fix a loved one's grave.